a lot of different factors into why Venezuela's economic situation became so dire.
Can you imagine even Venezuela, a communistic country, with some of the worst inflation that's taken place there?
Regime change this year in Venezuela.
To debate ahead of the primary elections in October.
Everyone has a bias towards Venezuela. Be careful. Today, we're going to discuss why.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
When you hear about Venezuela, you hear a lot of opinions, mostly bad opinions, especially if you're watching this from the West, a Western nation, or you come from a Western nation, most likely it's in English content. And most of the things that you hear about Venezuela are bad things. And depends who you ask, but 99% are going to be bad, bad takes about the country. And you have to be careful for that because everyone has a bias. First, let's start by Western bias. And want to start with Western media. Something, if you're first time you're watching this platform and this is something I repeated a bunch of times. The people who been following me for a while knows this. You have to be careful first with the Western mainstream media. Because when you hear about Venezuela from these platforms, CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, Deutsche Welle, Fox News, so regardless which side of the aisle politically, their political content they have bad news towards Venezuela, and they relate it to their particular situation, political and economic situation on their country. Something that I'm getting tired, especially on economics. Because I've listened to many smart people, I'm talking smart people, people that I admire, that never have been in Venezuela, probably they don't even speak Spanish. And when they talk about Venezuela, they talk about inflation and how we supposedly carry a bunch of blocks of bills. That happened actually years ago, not right now. Since 3 years ago, we are not on hyperinflation, and actually we have a disinflationary trend on the past 3 years or so. It's gonna go from 3 digits to 2 digits by the end of this year, according to the trend, a long-time trend. However, something you have to take into account is that the Venezuelan economy has been de facto dollarized since 2019. So the nominal inflation rate is meaningless for, I would say, the upper half of Venezuelans, because most Venezuelans earn on hard currency, either on US dollars, most likely, or a handful of them on euros, and a very small cohort in cryptocurrency. So you have to take that into account. First thing, so economics, you don't learn economics, Venezuelan economics, from someone from abroad, because they give terrible information, and they have their bias because they compare the Venezuelan economy to the U.S. economy when you have real inflation rates, and not only nominal but real, and actually this make up statistics about inflation in the U.S. and Canada and the Western Europe and so on. So they are using Venezuela as an example, but it's a very inaccurate example, and I have to correct people. Master's degrees from Harvard, Columbia, PhDs, they're actually very smart people, but they try to analyze the situation in Venezuela, people who have never been in the country, and I have to correct people that I admire. And that's the first thing that you have to be careful regarding biases towards Venezuela. Don't trust Western people that have never been in the country, and some people that just visited for a weekend or something to Margarita Island. Don't trust these people regarding economic analysis about Venezuela. The second people that you should not trust regarding the situation about Venezuela, I'm going to piss off a bunch of my fellow countrymen, but they are Venezuelans. You cannot trust them. Here's why. Because they are not keen in economics. They think they are not, but they are not. Trust me. I have to deal with those every single day, especially the migrant ones. Because here's what happens. Venezuela, during the midst of this dreadful crisis that we currently have, I mean, I'm not denying it. This is not like the Holocaust deniers or something like that, because it did happen, and actually we're still having some economic hardships. But the issue is that most Venezuelans have migrated to the rest of the world. I mean, if you're watching this from the US, you have you know Venezuelan migrants, especially in Miami or places like that. Same thing if you're watching this from Europe, from Madrid, from Paris, or from Italy, a place like that. Very good. These people, these migrants, when on the short term, they did not have opportunities within Venezuela. And they were totally correct, by the way. And also, the biggest issue that we have in Venezuela right now for the average Venezuelan is that there are not opportunities for the average Venezuelan from scratch in order to create wealth and prosperity. If you don't have assets, if you don't have high income skills and something of that nature, for the worldwide market, you are not going to be financially successful in Venezuela. And that's why most of these people had to migrate it, and I wish them the best because they're going to have opportunities over there in Western Europe and United States. Those opportunities are being diminished as well. We have to be frank about it, and we should have a discussion about it, not today. But on the other hand, those places are either, first, more expensive. They not necessarily have opportunities for newly, fresh, migrated people over there. They're going to have low-end jobs, very precarious jobs on those particular countries. And actually, they are very, spiteful about Venezuela and the Venezuelan government. And actually, they are right to do so. I don't blame them for that. However, their particular situation regarding these particular Venezuelans, that still they have outdated information. They have families over there. They're also on a dreadful situation, and they gave them some intel, and that's the intel that they have. But these people, at the same token, they are going through a lot on their home country, so they cannot fathom the idea that they made a mistake migrating to another country. Some of the Venezuelan migrants actually took the bullet and said, I made a mistake migrating to Peru or Colombia, or even a country like Spain, because the economy in Spain is, come on. And they cannot realize that they made a mistake, so they only blame the country and they wish the worst. And I've seen these cases, by the way, that they wish the worst to Venezuela, and when they see middle-class Venezuelan or an average Venezuelan increasing slightly their standards of living from they were dreadful in 2017, and on 2021, they were able to maybe pay a nice trip to a nice Venezuelan beach destination, or go to a nice restaurant, let's say once every month, something like that. They think this is not happening, but actually it is. Still for a cohort of the Venezuelan population within Venezuela. So you have to be very careful if you want economic and social intel of Venezuela from a Venezuelan that is living on your home country and is been a while in your home country. And also adding this to Venezuela is that Venezuela is has many bubbles geographically and socioeconomically. So if you ask a low middle class Venezuelan that come from a third-tier city here in the country, is not gonna give that. It's not been in the country in the past 5 years. It's not gonna give you credible, bona fide intel about the country because they never been higher class. They never mingle with businessmen, empresarios, entrepreneurs, and so on. Probably they don't even have lived in Caracas. Most of the GDP of Venezuela, the most significant portion is within Caracas. So if you live from outside of Caracas, you're not gonna get it. And they think the Caracas is the same thing, the same economy as your third-tier city that you came from. Very good. So you have to be careful for that in order to get real bona fide intel about Venezuela. And the third reason is the left. When you see anyone that comes from the left, center left, stuff of that nature, you have to be careful regarding their particular bias. Because every time that something good happens in Venezuela, start saying the socialism and so on, and every time that something bad happened in Venezuela, they start blaming the sanctions. Sanctions are bad, by the way, but that's for another discussion. But yes, sanctions are bad for the country. But they want to justify what indeed happened in the country using their, the left-leaning demagogy speech and so on. And you have to be very careful with that as well. Regarding someone who is left-leaning, might trying to explain you and paint you a picture of what happened in Venezuela from their left-leaning socialist perspective compared to what actually happened in the country. So if you want a bona fide, real intel, you have to go to the right sources. And every source, and even the good ones, the ones that I show you here on this channel, those sources, every source has a bias. So I have to work very hard in order to get the real intel, the real data, or something, the useful data. I have to separate it from the bias in order to give you a good pragmatic analysis. So that's why you have to be very careful from where you get your information regarding Venezuela.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.